We appreciate that great privilege in Christ Jesus. We thank you. We thank you. We give you all the praise. We give you all the glory. In Jesus' matchless name, we worship. And the people say, Amen. You can have your seat in this wonderful presence. As you have your seat, I'd like you to help me look to your right and to your left and help me welcome somebody to your right, somebody to your left, and just welcome them to God's presence. Welcome them with a smile. If you have a good word to say, just tell them, I like the way you're looking this morning. Amen. Glory to Jesus. All right. The boys are winning. And the boys are winning. The boys are winning. The boys are winning. If you understand, you understand. The boys are winning. Just this morning, God gave us another bouncing baby boy. Amen. So after the service, those of you who can visit, those of you who can call, let's just felicitate with the family of the Evans. They are currently at Bethel, so you can check them. Bethel is not far from here. All right, let's get into the word this morning. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. And I'd like us to read from verse 28 to 29. I'm speaking on the subject titled, The Fundamentals of Our Predestination. The Fundamentals of Our Predestination. Romans chapter 8. And I'd like us to read from verse 28 to 29. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. I'd like you to take note that the ultimate end of everyone that God comes into relationship with, the ultimate end plan of God is to ensure that you are glorified. To be glorified means to be decorated with all the goodness of God, to come to the crescendo of existence, that you are not just going to be existing in a dry format, but you are going to be living a life that is full in enjoyment of all that God has as resources. God didn't send you to planet Earth for you to just come here and just barely exist. His plans and his intention is that your life will come to the crescendo where we can say that your life is glorified, where you are reflecting the kind of glory that God has. But there are phases and processes that are involved. And please, I'd like you to take notes that glorification from the terms of God is different from the terminologies of men. Glorification, when it comes to man's terminology, talks about when you are able to have material things, material things all around you, and then how you get it does not even matter. But glorification for God is a total package. I know some of us are aware of the burial that took place a few days ago, and then because somebody has 240 something cows, and then some people are throwing bales of money, and it's so amazing that young people are asking questions, when will it be my turn? When will I also, some people are just freaked by that. Now to them, wow, what a glorious life. No, that's not the definition of glorification in the kingdom. Are you following me at all now? Our parameters and terms of references, even though might include material things, but they are not strictly or based on material things. We don't judge glorification on material things. I was talking to them at Oshogo Church this morning, and I said, do you know Jesus Christ our Lord, most anointed, grace, he never built a house when he came here, yet he was glorified. Never built a house, yet he was glorified. So sometimes our terms of references are are wet and we need to really get them right. Okay? But there are phases to this thing. God wants you to be glorified. He doesn't want you to live a life that is so barren and all of that. But the Bible starts by saying, Paul started that particular section of the scripture by saying, one thing is sure and is certain. For we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. I think I took time to explain that last week. That you see, this gives us a very strong foundation for hope. We know that when we have a relationship with God, we are not hopeless. It doesn't matter what happens within the perimeter of your life. You are sure that everything will be woven together to bring out something glorious out of your life. Even the people that are working against you, people that hated you, people that, human beings that allowed the enemy to use them against your life. One thing is sure. He said, for we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. I did the study on Apostle Babalola. I'm doing a different session on him. And one of the things that touched me the most is that as anointed as Apostle Babalola was, I think I just released one material of him on the YouTube where I said, do you know the things that you don't know about Apostle Babalola? Do you know that man was jailed for 6 months? Anointed. He was taken to court. Judgment was delivered against him. He was sentenced to jail for 6 months. Then you almost wonder, why shouldn't there be thunder, fire? There was no thunder and fire, but God used it to work out glory. What was his offense? He did a crusade. A woman confessed to witchcraft and died. And then some people gathered together and ganged up. They said they've been looking for how to actually get him. They wanted to curtail him. And so they went to court and said it was the one that was the reason for the death of the woman. And of course, the colonial masters at that time too wanted to find a way to get rid of him. So eventually, they decided to sentence him to 6 months imprisonment in Benin. So he had to go there. Now, people from his church came together and said, let us get you the best lawyer. You have a good case. And all that. I said, don't worry. I have a leading in my spirit that we should not. So he went there to serve his jail term. But while he was in the prison, there was a man called Udofia, later Pastor Udofia, who was from Akwa Ibom, was inside that same prison. He was about to die. He had a sickness that was going to kill him. Through the ministry of the apostle, God healed him. Not only did he get healed, he gave his life to Christ. He was discipled within that short period of time that the apostle was in the prison. And then when apostle's time was off, he left the prison. As soon as the man finished his jail term, he came to F1 to meet Apostle Babalola and insisted that he must follow him to his territory. And I tell you the truth, that was how the fire of revival hit that area. Southwest area was hit by revival fire through the Apostle Babalola, because those regions were immersed thickly in demonic control of marine spirits. But when that man came there with the gospel, a lot of people were delivered. And then many pastors, many anointed vessels were raised through that ministry. But God needed him to go to prison. For we know all things. Come on, say all things. I can hear you better. I can hear you better. So it is this assurance that helps us to look at situations in our lives and we have hope that this is still going to work for my good. I don't know what state of life you are in. I don't know what you are going through at this moment. I'm here to say to you that if you have a relationship with God, if you are called according to his purpose and you love God from the depth of your heart, you can be sure that this also will work for your good. Oh, you say, Pastor, you don't know what I'm going through. There are so many gang up against me. They are trying to do this. They are trying to do that. I can understand. I may not know the details, but I can understand with you because the scripture already gave us the terms, the frame of what? Terms of reference. And we know that certainly it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter who is behind it. We know that all things work together for good. Even when our Lord Jesus Christ was killed, the Bible says, had they known, they will not have crucified the Lord of glory. So every time the enemy tries to come and press you down oppress you, challenge you, create terrible situations around your life. The mistake of his life that he's making is that he's only setting you up for more glory. Is somebody with me at all now? Okay, but we progress from there. Then Paul began to say that for they that God foreknew, he predestined. If foreknew, and we saw that in Acts of Apostles chapter 15, the Bible says, known unto God are his works from the beginning. God knew all his work. You remember Jeremiah chapter 1, God said, before I formed you, I knew you. So you are known before you came to existence. But he said God predestined, God pre-planned, God determined what your end was going to look like. But what kind of predestination? The predestination is that everyone should conform to the image of his dear son. And that is where the rubber meets the road. And that's where predestination is different from faith. F-A-T-E. Faith gives you an impression that it is fixed, it's unchangeable. Predestination tells you that it can be changed depending on if you cooperate or not. God has a plan, a program that he wants your life to run. But that your life will run that program in God, provided you follow his pattern. Once you don't follow his pattern, you get out of the way. It is not compulsory, it must happen. God came to Samuel and was telling Samuel about, he told the prophet first before he discussed with Samuel about Eli. He said, it is me that predestined that the family of Eli will forever be priests in my house. Predestination. I predestined that the generation will be before me. In fact, it was instituted with the covenant as a covenant of salt. Then he came back, said, because the conditions were not met. The condition for the perpetuity were not met. He said, so from this moment, far be it from me. Are you following me at all now? They were predestined, but they didn't live to fulfill it. I can go on and show you people that were predestined who never fulfilled it. Another good example was Saul. God's desire was to have a man who would deliver Israel and lead his people in the right path. And then he chose Saul. He was nobody. He didn't look like it. And that's why the Bible says, God was saying is, why you are small in your own eyes, did I not make you? You didn't look like it. You weren't looking for it. I picked you. He was predestined, but he didn't get it. Another man. In fact, when I get to heaven, that's one man I'm going to ask. If I'm privileged to ask questions, that's one man I would like to ask questions. If God can allow the divide between heaven and hell, I'm going to ask questions. And if there's no divide, I'm going to ask God what actually was going on in the mind of the guy. His name is called Jeroboam. If you read your Bible very well, God never presented to David the kind of opportunity he presented to Jeroboam. There was no time of reference before David came on the scene. David was just loving the Lord. And out of what David now loved the Lord, the way he loved the Lord, God said, okay, David, at this point, I'm going to do this for you. But in the case of Jeroboam, he got the answer before he started the exam. God said, if you only do like David. So there was a prototype. All the guy needed to do was to check everything David did and did like, just do exactly like David. God said, if you do what David did, I'm going to give you an everlasting dynasty like I gave David. David didn't start out expecting an everlasting dynasty. Jeroboam started out with, free check, open check. The guy still bungled it. Still messed up. God said, my predestination for you is to make your life so glorious that I will give everlasting dynasty. The guy didn't fulfill it. He was booted out. So you can find out from the scriptures that there are people who are predestinated. They are predestinated. God planned what their end should look like. He determined what he expected to be the outcome of their lives, but they chose not to cooperate with God, so they didn't end up where God wanted them to end. My first prayer for you this morning, every one of you under the sound of my voice, and those of you watching us on the internet, that in the name of Jesus, whatever God has predestinated for you, you will fulfill. Everything that God has planned, that inside him you will accomplish. I declare that you will accomplish. The grace to be on track, receive in the name of Jesus. So the day that God foreknew, he predestinate. What kind of predestination? To be conformed to the image of his dear son. That tells us something. God is looking for people who will be like his son. And then he said that he, that the son, that is Christ, might be the first among brethren. What does that mean? That he might be our prototype, our example. Just like Jeroboam had an example in David. Do you notice that after David, every other king in Israel, God was using David as an example for them? David was the yardstick. You hear, this man did not walk upright like David his father, therefore he lost it. Oh, this man did like David, only that in this area he didn't do it. So David became the prototype. So in this same order, the Bible says that God predestined, God planned ahead of time that your life and my life will accomplish certain things, but it is as we use Jesus as our yardstick, as our pattern. Now, he didn't call him Jesus here because there is a reason why he didn't call him Jesus here. He called him the Son of God. What does it mean? It simply means one who has his source from God, who is connected to his source to ensure that he resembles his source. Can I repeat myself? As a son, he knows that he didn't come here by accident. You know, our own understanding of the son is only from English grammar. And even in English grammar, when you look for etymology, they tell you son simply means someone who is from another. Father means a source. So when we say we are the son of God, we are people who came from another source. Who is the source? God. So God becomes our father. So God is our source. Who is God? Jesus told us, said he is a spirit. So a God is a spirit that backs men up in the affairs of life. And you know there are several gods. It is only us that know that there is only one God. But there are several gods. There are several so-called gods. There are several spirits that back people up. They call them gods. But we know that there is only one God. So he separated himself from every other God by calling himself the Almighty. Oguruguru. He has all that it takes. All breasted. If you talk about Shango, he only has power within terrain of thunder. When you talk about Ogun, he has power within terrain of battle and iron. When it comes to giving birth to children, Ogun has no say. When it comes to giving birth to children, they go to Oya, Olokun, and all of that. But like I've always said, all of those gods, they are only trying to take territories that God is the only one that has control over. I was explaining this mystery to somebody the other day and said, somebody asked me an interesting question, said, Pastor, you say God, children come from God. If children come from God, how come that people go to herbalists and they go to fetish people and they have children? I say it's very simple. The whole of the universe, God has principles governing everything. The whole of the universe. There are principles governing everything. And by principles that God has set, things are supposed to take their natural course. Now, what the devil does, because the devil also has power, being a fallen angel, and with all other fallen angels like him, what they do is that they disrupt the natural course of things. They obstruct it. And by that obstruction, they call attention to themselves. When they obstruct the natural course of things, they call attention to themselves. And that is where the rubber meets the road. People who do not know their God will be looking for ways to get the obstructions removed. People who know their God, they will look unto God as their source to remove the obstruction. That's why the Bible says, they that do know their God shall be strong. It says, they that do wickedly against the covenant, he will corrupt with flattery. He will use lies to corrupt them. But they that do know their God, they are not going to give in to the lies of the devil because they understand the fundamentals. Are you with me at all? So the devil obstructs the process and then call attention to himself. So people start going. It could be a process of health, good health. And then the devil comes and obstructs the process of good health, and somebody has a strange sickness. And then the sickness defies all drugs and all of that. When you get, in fact, even if it's not the one that is strange, in the concept of operating with God, there is a rule that is important. You operate by faith. What is faith? Absolute trust, confidence in God to do what you know him capable of doing. Are you following me at all now? That's why the Bible says without faith it's impossible to please God. For they that come to him must know that he exists, and he's a rewarder, he's a performer for them that diligently seek him. So when we understand that there is a God, even though we can't see him, there is a spirit that has all power. So whatever is my need, I'm not agitated by the circumstance and situation around me. I am focused on him who has all power to perform. David said, I will call upon the Lord who performeth all things for me. Is somebody with me at all now? So the enemy can bring that obstruction on the health. Like the question that person asked me about children. I said, what the enemy just simply does, he put obstruction in giving birth. For some people, the enemy has a legal reason to put the obstruction. Because if God will only open our eyes, you will find out that there are a lot of things that happen that we don't know. For example, if somebody is coming from a family, that someone within the family had done wickedness, had done evil against other people's children, that can be a legal reason for them to be barren in that family. A legal reason. There's a place in Ondo State. They took, is it 3 or 7 virgins. In the process of doing sacrifice to their gods, they buried them alive in water. And while those people were buried inside water alive, they uttered curses. And there is a fundamental principle that governs the earth. The ground, including water, the land, the earth. It is under compulsion to pay people back for whatever they do on it. That's why you have to be careful what you do on the earth. Because it records what you do. And whatever you do on it, it will multiply it back to you. Are you following me at all now? That's what the Bible refers to as the law of sowing and reaping. As heaven and earth remains, seed time and harvest. It's not only for plants, it's for everything on the earth. Whatever you do is a seed. The earth will multiply it and return it back to you. That's why God said that he visits judgment on children and on children's children till how many generations? 4th generation. Are you following me at all now? But he gives reward to children and children's children till what? 1,000 generations. Are you following me? So there are people, as we speak now, the ease and the enjoyment that their life is experiencing is a reward of what their great-grandfather did on the earth. That's why you have to be careful what you do now. Because somebody is going to partake of what you are doing, because the ground will pay them back. So, let's get back to where I'm going. So I said, if somebody has done evil against other people's children, there are people who just, for no reason, somebody gave birth and then they'll kill the child. Somebody is pregnant and then, because they wish evil, they destroy the pregnancy because of their power. So the ground records it. So somewhere in their lineage, somebody will give birth. And then the enemy put obstruction. Because at that point, the enemy has a legal right. Now, if the person is born again, it doesn't mean the enemy will still not come with that. Because as long as the blood of that family is flowing, the enemy still comes with that. And I think this is the dimension people don't know in warfare. What you now do is to enforce your new rights. Are you following me at all now? Because if you are coming from a family that has certain things flowing in it, the enemy wants to ensure you still partake of that evil. It is now for you to say, no, I am a new creature. All things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And Jesus gave us a warning from the day of John the Baptist. The kingdom of God suffereth violence, and only the violent taketh it by force. You insist, hey devil, you can't give me this. And only those who know their God can take that stand. So what happens? Somebody is born again. He's supposed to get have a child. 1 year is not having a child, or 2 years not having a child, 3 years not having a child. And they'll say, hey, you better go and don't want to see you, they are fit to see you, and all of that. And then people will be sent by the devil, who are master crafters of tradition. They know how to use old wives' fable. they now start giving you stories, and they help you to see how deviating a little here, a little there is not an evil. They help you to see how, you see, taking concussion, it's not here. It's because of your own too that we are saying, oh, and they give you all of those lies. And so as soon as you step into that terrain, you have stepped into the terrain of the enemy. So what he does for people who now go to consult demonic forces is that he himself, he knows where he put the barrier now. He will remove the barrier. Then a child is born. But the child will be a problematic child. Are you following me at all now? So the child, they give birth to the child. From inside the womb, a demon has attached himself to the child. And so that child begins to give problem to the family. I've had to conduct 2 deliverances from that particular region. Are you following me at all now? Woman who got pregnant and then, of course, the wrong spirits, they were doing that long time, and then got pregnant and the demon entered that child from birth. And the child, when they gave birth to the child cried until they took the child to one of the priestess of the gods. And then they had to work on her. And so every time she exhibit those things, they take her back to the place. She became a grown-up person. The spirit was still following. Until we met, and then I invited the parents because she didn't know. But while I was trying to conduct deliverance, the Lord said to me, you can't deal with this one without knowing the background. Send for the parent. So I sent for the parent. And I said, this is what the Lord is saying to me. And then thank God that the woman was cooperating because the husband wanted to do. So the woman was able to explain. I said, okay, so we can deal with it. And then we dealt with it. And then put it out the demon. See, there is no devil that owns anybody. Are you following me at all now? You know, some demons now say, I am the owner. It's a lie. I've met them on deliverance. It's my own. It's a lie. You don't own anybody. Because God owns everything. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The only thing the devil can do is to gain advantage over people. Simple. And the Bible says, God was speaking about in the book of Isaiah, said, my people are destroyed. Hosea, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Once you get the right knowledge, you take the ground out of the feet of the devil. No wonder Paul said, give no space to the devil. Is somebody still here with me? Okay, good. So our predestination is that we will be like his dear son. People who know that we have our source from God. We know that our source is God. Source of everything. Source of our supply. Source of our strength. Source of our wisdom. Source of everything. In other words, there is nothing in our lives that can be accounted for without him. That's where the rubber meets the road. Many of us like to be independent. We like to be able to do our things. But God is looking for people that he will plan their lives. And in planning their lives, they know themselves that without him, they can do nothing. Because the Son said, the Son can do nothing by himself. By myself, as the Son, I can do nothing. Are you still with me at all now? So God predestined, they that God foreknew, and everybody was predestined like that to come and conform to the image of his dear son. That is, we should be like his son. We should be people who operate our lives from that concept where we also can say, by my own self, I can do nothing. You remember Jesus said, without me, you can do nothing. Oh, but pastor, we have people who are not born again that are doing great things. We have people who are not born again that are doing great projects. Again, let me quickly help educate you on this concept. The fact that men are involved in activities and projects and doing things that looks big in the eyes of men does not mean they have done something. A lot of things that we celebrate are nothing before God. Isn't it interesting that when you study the ants, I've used that analogy for you here before. When you see the ants, they also do great things. Haven't you seen ant hill? Haven't you seen great palace they construct for themselves? If you study the building of the ant, sometimes it looks like mansion. You will see one window will be up. Some window, I don't know if you pay attention. No, some of us don't pay attention to those things. Please, from now on, please begin to pay attention. They will build the sound, construct it. Some of our houses are not as technologically advanced as theirs. 'Especially considering how feeble they are. And yet, after they build all those things, one leg of a man can scatter it. Just one leg. Is to tell you how unimportant it is. So most of the things we gather and we make noise about, in the perspective of God, they are not as important. That's why Solomon told us in the book of Ecclesiastes, I recommend Ecclesiastes for anybody that is being tempted by the allure of material things. I recommend Ecclesiastes for you as a treatment. Read it over and over and over again. Read it like 10 times, meditatively. You will see how futile most human efforts can look like. Solomon said, I wanted to see what is important as duty that man should be doing on the planet Earth. He said, so I engage in all kinds of activities. He said, but I put my wisdom with me. In other words, I have an analytical mind despite what I am doing. Then he said, in chapter 2, he said, I began to build houses. I built aqueducts. I did this, I constructed, I did vineyard. All of the things that you can mention, all of the industries that you can ever mention that somebody can do great things in, they are in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and 3. So I did all of that. He said, but when I came to the end of it to analyze with the wisdom that is with me, I came to this conclusion: vanity upon vanity. He said, I moved from that place. Maybe I was too serious. I went into entertainment. I gathered all musicians, the best one. Two-Face. What's the name of those other ones? Huh? Yes, Whiskey. I gathered all of them, including the international and the local. Put all kinds of show together. I did all kinds of comedy show. He said, but I look again, I analyze. Vanity upon vanity. He began to tell us all that he did. Conclusion, same. Vanity upon vanity. He says, so I began to ask myself, what is it that man should do now? He said, I found out that the most important thing for man is to enjoy himself in the work that God has given to him. That is quite instructive. So you can give yourself work and God can give you work. Any work you give yourself is labor in futility. You will do it. You may have success in human eyes, but in divine agenda, you are a failure. Are you still with me here? That's why Jesus came in here. He wasn't just doing anything. He said, that which I see the Father do, that is what I do. I limit myself within the parameter of the task that has been assigned to me. Hello? So we are programmed to conform, to be like, to take the pattern of living of his dear son. You remember how God commended his dear son? This is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. So in other words, that voice must ring over your life when heaven looks down. A program that you should be someone that he could look at and say, yes, I'm pleased with you. I look at the activities of your life. I look at the things that you are doing. I look at the way you are ordering your life. I am pleased with your life. Oh, Jesus. So that changed the narrative. That I am no longer supposed to play to the gallery for men to applaud me. So the approval and the applause of men no longer matters. There are individuals who are approval addicts. If people applaud them, they are excited. If people don't applaud them, they cave in. Let me say this to you. You can never fulfill destiny in grand style if you are not delivered from people's opinion. People can mislead you. People's opinion, very deceptive. The devil uses it as a very strong weapon to distract. That was one fundamental thing that distracted Saul. He said, when I look at the people, they were leaving me. And God said, what's my business with that? I asked you to wait till Samuel came. Till Samuel comes. He said, but when I look, and why were the people leaving? The people say, we don't like to follow a leader that is although you're like you. We just been waiting. You say you're now waiting for one man. Can't we do this thing ourselves? But the divine protocol requires that Samuel must do it. I hear what the Bible says. When Samuel came, he said, "Yee, why have you done so foolishly?" So when the people's opinion were contrary to divine agenda, it was a test. You didn't catch that. Sometimes in the journey of fulfilling your destiny, the opinions of men surrounding you will be used as a test against divine intentions, and your ability to hold your ground is what matters at that time. It is another man's opinion that failed the young prophet. The old prophet said, "You met God Almighty. He gave you clear instruction." And then old prophet came and told him something different. And he didn't go to cross-check with the one who gave him the instruction in the first place. Guess what? The same old prophet came back to announce his foolishness. I learned a long time ago that men are entitled to their opinions. Because when men don't understand the agenda of your life, they give it a definition that suits their own opinion. And you must be internally secured enough to keep moving by what you know is correct in divine agenda for your life. Because when all is said and done, it's only you that will account. God is not going to call them to account. Are we still together? So he predestined, he pre-planned that we should be conformed. We should come into that pattern that we will be like his dear son. We will live a life that is following that pattern of his dear son. We can also be able to say that my source is God, and God can say, "I am pleased with your life. I look at the way you are living your life. I am pleased because you are pleasing me. You are giving me pleasure. Thou art worthy. Thou art worthy, O Lord. Worthy, O Lord, to receive glory, honor, and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are. Do you take note of that last segment? And for thy pleasure they are. That's why they exist. And why? That's what they are created for. So you are existing not for yourself. You are existing and you are created for him and to bring him pleasure. So that is the starting point. So number one fundamental of our predestination is an understanding that we represent his interests. We represent his interests. Because the son represents the interest of the father. You are not here for your own interest. You are here for his interest. And can I tell you something about this? When you understand that you are representing his interest, every activity of your life will take his interest into consideration. You will not spend money anyhow because you are going to be considering his interest. Because it's affordable does not mean you should buy it. I was telling them in Oshogo Church this morning, Solomon could afford to build 1,000 temples and it will not affect his wealth. But because it's affordable didn't mean God wanted him to do it. He did it anyway because he didn't consider the interest of the person that put him on the throne. Built 1,000 shrines and everyone began to weep. Solomon, this is not why we gave you the wealth. Sometimes we do showmanship with what God has given us without asking the interest of the one that gave us. So all of you that your heart have started rising up, look at the way they are throwing bail. Hey, when will it be my turn? You better don't desire that kind of life. May God make you wealthier than that. But may you be more focused on destiny than that. You know, when you don't understand the essence of things, you abuse it. Because you don't understand the essence of it. He predestined you and I to be conformed to the image of his son. What does his son look like? He represents the interest of the Father. He said the Son has glorified you on the earth. So the first concern of the Son is, how do I glorify the Father? So you should ask yourself, having girls in the swimming pool and throwing naira on them, and those foolish ones were also running after money inside water, half naked. And they insulted your integrity as ladies. That if you have a girlfriend, tie her down so that she doesn't come to this kind of place. They will snatch her. That means majority of girls have no value. They don't even understand essence. When you understand divine interest, you even know you cannot marry just anyhow, male or female. Every man is not worth going after. It's only the man that you are sent to assist. Because when it's all is said and done, it will be said, what have you done? Yes, understandably, if you made mistake like Rahab in the past, you could say to God, Lord, here am I. Do you know, any moment you come to the understanding of your predestination, God picks you up again. Rahab lived as an analogy. Do you know how many men that must have slept with Rahab? Yet, God still found him to put him in the genealogy of Jesus. Not even very far. I think like 3 steps away. Genealogy of Jesus. And when they were mentioning the grandmothers of Jesus, they mentioned that. In that genealogy, only 2 major women were mentioned. Rahab the harlot and the mother of Ruth, mother of Obed, that God will call him. Those are the 2 major women. All others were men. But when you look at those 2 women, they have issues. Ruth was a Moabitess, a generation that God said they should not come into his temple for 10 generations. But the moment you understand that the interest of God comes first, he gives you a place. He gives you a place. So his interest first. John chapter 5 verse 30, Jesus said, the Son, I have not come to do my own. I didn't come to do my own thing. I've come for him that sent me. I can of my own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will. I seek not my own interest, but the interest of the Father who sent me. Can I ask this question? The life you are living, who sent you? Some sent themselves. They live for themselves. One thing about me is I take care of myself. No. Don't joke with myself. I take care of myself. I don't care. And heaven weeps when men live like that. But heaven rejoices when men are found who concentrates on living for his interests. Number 2, you have to be spiritually minded. You know, we are looking at the fundamentals of our predestination. The Bible says, now, therefore, there's no condemnation to them who are in Christ Jesus, who live according to the law of the Spirit, not according to the law of the flesh. And then he went further and said, to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded. So in other words, when you are in Christ, there is a way you think, or there is a way you are supposed to think. You know, many of us, we are raised in settings where the thought pattern is contrary to God's pattern. God said, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Your ways are not my ways. As heaven above the earth, so are my thoughts from your thoughts. But he went further and said, as rain comes from heaven and to the ground and does not return without getting results, so is my thoughts. If my thought is the one that is in control, then it will not return to me back empty. Hear this. Your thoughts, the way you think, put another way, your mindset, a combination of several belief systems, and the way you allow your mind to run determines how your life goes, the direction of your life. That's why the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is it. In fact, Paul had to plead and say, I beg you, by the mercy of God, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed. How? By the renewal of your mind. Why? Because you need to know what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Once you have understood that you are designed to live for God's interest, for his will, you need to know that will. And it means your mind has to come to terms with that. So, the way Jesus was thinking was different. So when you have a destiny to fulfill in God, you are called to conform to that pattern of Christ. In fact, that's why the Bible says, let this mind be in you that was in Christ. Let your mind be the kind of mind that Christ has. And what is the characteristics of the kind of mind that Christ has? Is consideration of things as spiritual. He looked at things not from the ephemeral. He said, I do not judge by the seeing of my sight or the hearing of my ear. He said, my judgment is just, for I hear from above. They brought a woman to him and said, yeah, what do you think? Should we stone her? Everybody concluded we should stone her. But Jesus was looking, his thought was different. The way he was thinking was different. Why? Because in every issue, his thought is spiritual. He considers spiritual matters first. That's what Paul called in Romans chapter 8 to be spiritually minded. You are not judging things or viewing things, considering issues from physical angle. A brother comes to you, he doesn't have money. He's using Legacy's Benz or Legacy's Royce. And nothing glamorous. If you look from the physical standpoint of you, you can miss a life partner. I always tell you, young ladies, I said, if my wife had thought from physical point of view, she would have missed me. Because at first sight, I didn't look like it. Every parameter on the natural does not concede to her agreeing for me. Only spiritual mindedness would have made her. And when I asked her, one day I asked her, because even myself, I thought about it. I sat down. I thought. I've been thinking about it. I thought about it. Shego, just wait till if you had proposed to yourself, you would have known that you are a risk. So, to have accepted. So I asked her, Madam, what did you see? What seared thou? And she said, I just looked at you and I consider you as a man that has something on the inside. That every word that you say makes sense. Say, so I know you have a vision on the inside. And so I believe that if I follow you, we'll get there. Because really, it doesn't make sense. She was earning 54,000, I was earning 7,000. Doesn't make sense. I had one trouser, 2 shirts. She had a lot of material. She was coming to camp. They brought with her, there was no many bottled water at that time, Ragolis water. They could pack Ragolis water with her to camp. I was the first person that took her to Buka. First person that bought her pure water. Can't you say, car for me? I broke record. I broke record. At least if they are mentioning first, I can also say I am first. Praise the Lord. Of course, sisters, I'm not necessarily saying that means that you go and marry a poor person as it were. God can destine you to marry a rich man, so don't. But I'm saying that the consideration first is spiritual mindedness. Are you following me at all now? You are thinking of spiritual reasons, not flimsy physical reasons. Me, I cannot date anybody that doesn't have a cow. So what will I tell my friends? No. Ordinary iPhone. A Joshua iPhone, what do they call those things? iPhone X. 12 Pro. He gives me gist, so he tries to help me to be correct. Ordinary iPhone. He was telling me that some girls will go to Yahoo Boys and says, I'll sleep with you. They make a deal. I didn't know that our world is getting that worse. They will make a deal of one night sleep to get iPhone 12 Pro. One night sleep. It just shows how degraded. But before you start saying, what? It's the fault of all of us that became born again. Because part of our responsibility, part of the work God has given to us, is to reach out to souls so that we can get them to connect to God. So the more you see those things, the more you should see that they are work to do. The more you should feel sad, and that should draw you to your closet in prayer. The more you should be passionate about evangelism, because it's telling you that we are going down the drain. Many of us are so self-centered, self-seeking, that our thinking is only how we will succeed and make money. Making money is not bad. Don't forget, I mean, balance. I've always taught you about balance. God wants you to work hard. He wants you to be. But it is all meant to be from the perspective that your mind is thinking spiritual. You are considering your mind. Number 3. Alignment with divine principles, which the Bible called the truth. So you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Jesus speaking, John chapter 4, they that worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. How did Jesus live his own life? The Bible says, and the word became flesh, and he dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, full of grace and truth. That means all the principles of God governing life are things that will be governing your life. You know that there are many ways to do things now, that they are so numerous that it's almost difficult for you to know which one is God's way. That's why I said, stand in the crossroad. Ask for that good and old path. Walk in it. I told them in Oshogo Church this morning, it was a subject of discussion when we were coming. It was the team that went with me were asking why I said that. Have you noticed that in almost all documents now, when they are the section that talks about marriage, is not only talking about marriage between male and female. There's now provision for you to be bisexual. Bisexual, for you to be homosexual. They leave that option. It is now considered as offense in some countries. In fact, in international standard, it is considered an offense not to give room for those other options. Before it was also. So I told them, I said, in another 50 years or 100 years, if we are not very careful, we will have a generation who will not know that once upon a time, marriage is only between a man and a woman. We will have a generation who now feel that marriage is optional. It could be between a man and a woman, it could be between a man and a woman, it could be between a woman and a woman, it could be anyhow. Because the devil multiplied the options. So there will now be need for that generation to be finding the truth. Because truth, according to God's terms of reference, is constant. Are you with me now? So, to be like his dear son means you conform to truth. You are full of truth. The truth becomes the foundation for your life. And when I'm talking about truth, I'm talking about truth in all sections. Truth as it relates to marital life. Truth as it relates to your finances. Truth as it relates to your career. Every aspect of your life. There are truths of God that governs or that are supposed to govern our life, which should be the premise upon which we base our decisions. Those truths are also codified as God's wisdom. The truth of God. The truth of God. The truth of God concerning finance says, give and it shall be given to you. Good measure. Shaking together, running over. Shall men be commanded to give to you? Now, when it comes to you having financial blessing, there are about, 3 or 4 ingredients that are key. Of course, there are others that are, but there are about 3 or 4 ingredients that are key. Number 1 ingredient is recognizing God as your source. Are you following me at all now? If you want to be a man that is going to be enjoying divine provision and resources, first thing that must be settled in your mind is the source of what you need is God. It's not paper. I was discussing with my friend yesterday, and he said, I want to take my wife to Lagos to just blow her head away, as in to just cool her head off and all of that. And then also, maybe I also just cool off. And he said, alright, why are you not thinking of Dubai? And then the next thing I said, Dubai will cost me. He said, hey, that's where you get problem. And I quickly repented because he caught me there. He said, you think about it, and the first thing you are thinking is money. He said, why not first think of God? Then God can then decide either to give you money for Dubai or he gets somebody that gives you the ticket. Of course, that's the truth I've always known. God can choose to give you a car, and he can choose to give you money to buy the car. What is more important is that you get a car. Are we together? Now, the rule of the thumb when it comes to resources is first see God as the supplier, as your source. Number 2 is to understand the principle of diligence, working. When God is going to bless you, there must be something in your hands that you are doing. He will bless the work of your hands. Number 3 is to understand the principle of liberality. Being able to be liberal. And that starts with liberality towards God. Liberality towards God is called honoring God. Solomon was a man who understood it, and he codified it for us in Proverbs chapter 3. He said, honor the Lord with your substance. Honor the Lord with your substance and the first fruit of your increase. Then what happens to you? Your barn shall be filled with increase. A lot of the time when we come to church and we say we give offering, we are not giving honorable offering. We give offering like Cain. Why God didn't accept the offering of Cain was because there was no honor in it. It wasn't because God liked Abel more than Cain. No. When the two of them brought their offering, one was honorable. Some people say it was because Cain didn't kill, didn't shed blood, didn't kill animal. He brought only the thing of the field. No, even God knows that is his work. Is this other man that was tending sheep? That one was a man of the field. He knows that he was a farmer, crop farmer. So God doesn't expect him to bring sheep. But he was expecting that out of what he has, he will bring him something honorable. What got Solomon endeared to God, that God blessed him with so much wealth? Simple. Nobody, including his father, had ever given God 1,000 burnt offering. Nobody. He came on the scene and they gathered together. First offering to God, 1,000 burnt offering. That must have costed him a lot. Costed him in terms of money, costed him in time that they will use to kill it, costed him in terms of resources he will use to service those who are killing it. And God said, yea, Solomon, nobody has done this. You cannot outperform me. You gave me 1,000 cows. I will tell you I own the whole heaven and the earth. Tell me what you need. And God was waiting for the guy to just mention some big things. And he said, just give me wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. God said, that's all. You didn't even ask for the life of your enemy. I would have just massacred them a lot. That one is small. With that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, I will now give you wealth. I will give you honor. And he began to mention it. Why? Solomon stepped on the key. Are you following me at all? What got David everlasting dynasty? Liberality. God never told anybody, build me a house. David said, because to build God a house will cost something. David said, I'm going to build God a house. And he prepared for it. He said he prepared for it out of his own resources. The temple that Solomon built, it was the money that was provided by David. That's why Solomon looked at what to give God. Because all the temple, as all of the gold, they were already made ready. So the only input of Solomon was the sacrifice. Is somebody still with me here? So the third input is sacrifice. The fourth input is character. You might not have had that in the school of prosperity, but I'm telling you, character. Character from the perspective of you dealing with people and having integrity. You know, you must have a character that can endear you to people. It is that character that is the foundation upon which favor rests. Are you following me at all now? If God grants you favor first time before people, if you don't have solid character, your attitude will chase people away. God won't come down from heaven to help you. He will send men to you. But those men must like you. For them to like you, there must something in your character that attracts them. When they are attracted to you first and something in your character is not good, you will chase them away. That was the foolishness of Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. Had it on the platter of gold, but he had no character. He had nothing in his personality that endears people. Some people talk anyhow to people and they expect to be wealthy. Some people don't have any sense of honor. Meanwhile, the people that will promote them, the person that will promote them, will be before them, they will not know. They would have dishonored the person, so they disqualify themselves. Character. So there are truths of God. And so Christ operated by the truths all through. So he said it was full of truth. No wonder there was glory. He said we beheld his glory as the only begotten of God. Number what are we? Number 4. Let me run quickly through the others. Number 4. You must understand the need to draw strength from God. Because it was full of truth and grace. Hear this. It's not by power, not by might, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Paul said, I am what I am by the grace of God. In fulfilling destiny, you need that element called grace. And grace, you draw grace. You draw it. Let us come to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace in the time of need. You need some measure of power, energy of God to assist you to do the things that you cannot do by yourself. And let me tell you the secret of how grace is drawn. You have to humble yourself before God. Even in things that you know you are very good, go low before God. Let him feel you are not. Because in the character of God, once God sees you as a man that feels you are capable, he pushes you back. The Bible says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and in due season, he will do what? He will exalt you. He grants grace to the humble. And you need grace. I'm telling you the truth. You need grace. Because this is what God wants. He wants it to be that in the final analysis, you can say, we have this treasure in earthen vessel, that the excellency of power may be of God. So it can no longer be said, I did it. It will be God helped me to. For it is he that worketh in you, both to will and to do. Any man that you see always trying to show he did. He has not known him properly. He has not known him properly. Because once you learn and understand destiny, you know you are predestined. If you are going to live to the fullness of your predestination, you need grace. Because you can only become what he has designed you to be in Christ as he supplies grace. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. If he doesn't supply grace, you are nothing. I'm nothing without your grace. Number 5. Is that 5? Number 5. There must be an understanding that you are designed for good works. Paul told us in Ephesians chapter 2 verse 10, say we are God's special creation, designed unto good works, which God planned that we should do before the foundation of the earth. Designed unto good works. Designed unto good works. Hear this. There are responsibilities that God has planned that you must carry out. There are activities, there are projects that should touch lives. Acts of Apostle. Is it 10:36 now? How God anointed Jesus Christ of Nazareth with Holy Ghost and with power, who went about doing good. He went about doing good. Everywhere he went, he was doing good. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Can I ask you a question? Can it be said? You know, when you talk about good, you are talking about something. When you talk about good, you talk about something that brings benefits to other people. Can it be said that the works that you do, they bring benefit to others? Most of us, our works are first with the intention of making money, making profits. Meanwhile, in the mind of God, He wants your works to first be something that makes life better for other people. And it doesn't have to be an occupation. It doesn't have to be the fact that, okay, it's a place where they pay you salary. There are many works that your life is designed to do. Some of you, God will send you a friend. And God's plan is that you should work on that friend until the life of that friend is transformed. And if you do a good job, heaven will celebrate you. Jesus finished his work. I tell people, never allow anybody stay in your space without you asking God, what is my role in this person's life? Because there's a work for you. God doesn't just place you in somewhere by accident. You find yourself in a particular location. Just like even this church. You come to church. Some of you are 2 years, 3 years in this church. All you come to do is to, I like Pastor Shegun's sermon. Let me just go. Let me hear. You see, the time I like, somebody was telling me the other day, they said, the only time I like is, I like the time when the message. So I target my coming. Because I was asking the person, why do you always come late? I said, Pastor, you see, the only thing I enjoy, maybe the person thought it was making me feel okay. The time I like is your message. The only thing I like is your message. So I come to the time of your message. No, that's not a good way to live. No. That's not a good way to live. You should be asking God, Lord, you put me in this church. For what purpose? Why am I here? Because there's a work you must do. In every way He puts you, there's a work. Under God, since I became born again, I became conscious with Him. I have never been in a place without asking God why. Even when I join an association, I'm asking questions. Why? Why am I here? And God had never failed to give me why I'm there. I was to go for service. As soon as they announced that we were going for service, I started praying, Lord, what am I supposed to do there? And then the Lord said to me, get to come and open camp with them on the first day. I'll tell you what to do. So I was at the gates, right in my front. They opened the door. Go to Makodi, go to the place where they are doing this. It was in my eyes. They opened the gate. I entered. As soon as I entered, the Lord said, build me an altar here. What if I didn't ask? And then I started leading them to pray. That's how my wife got to know me. So I would have also missed my wife. 4:30, 4 a.m. I will get up. I'll start shouting. Chris, because by 5:30, they are already drilling us. So I lead them in about 45 minutes prayer. So I'll move around the camp. Christian brothers, Christian sisters, it's time to pray. Once they hear my voice, they will come out. So they come and join me under a tree. I'll lead them in prayer. I didn't know that heaven wanted to use me to prove a point. Because that year, the NYC director of that state had just banned NCCF from coming. Only 2 fellowships were permitted. Catholic and NCCF. But the Catholic group, they were not many. And they were not as aggressive in evangelism as the NCCF. So because of what the president of NCCF did, I don't know what she said he did. Said no. And said, I don't want them to be on the campus for that year. So they were afraid. They didn't know what to do. So the first 2-3 days, they couldn't even come in because they don't want to be arrested. God, who is a master strategist, had the joker. But thank God there was somebody who was willing to say, God, if you will use anything, you can use me. I was leading them in those 3 days. It was one of those days my wife said she saw me and something said to her, that something was Holy Ghost. What if that's your husband? I said, yes. And guess what? Me too. I saw her in a passing. And I had a witness, that's your wife. But I was so engrossed in what I was doing, so I didn't talk to her until after we finished. I was barely sleeping. It's like a spirit blanketed me. Maybe for all the 14 days, I'll sleep only 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. Be awake again. But it was for a reason. Part of the people that were in that group, one sister was traveling back home. 18-seater passenger bus, had an accident. She went into a state of coma. She was the only survivor. She said in her subconscious, I was leading them to pray one prayer. When the ark of God entered into the temple of Dagon, Dagon fell face down. That as we come into this territory, we will be unscratched because the ark of God didn't have any scratch. That sister said that's what she was praying. In her subconscious, she said she woke up to life after some days making that statement. It took her about 2 or 3 months before she came back. She looked for me to come and say, thank you, Brother Shegun, for leading us. We got into town after the camp. Lord, what will you have me do? I want to be going to prison. How did I know? One day, he just said, stand up, move. So I was walking, and then he showed me, okay, no, we first started, he told me to go to prison, started going, and then some people didn't like the fact that the prisoners were always asking, Brother Shegun should come to their prison. So they ganged up and said, they don't want me to go with them. And I don't like to disrupt the group. So I left the group, I came out, and God said, I was the one that asked you to go to prison to be preaching. I said, but the group I should go with, I cannot go and meet them that me alone, I want to go to prison. So God said, okay, one day, say, come. And then as I was going, I saw the office of the state command. And God said, go inside there. To do what? I said, go. So I went in. As I went in, he said, ask for the overall head, the state commander. So I asked for the state commander. What will I tell him? I don't even know. So the secretary just went inside and told the man that there's somebody that said wants to see you. He said, go and ask his name. He come back and ask me. And when I've learned several years, when you ask me my name, I answer with confidence. My name is Shegun Odribo. The way I will answer. So he went back and told the man that he said his name is Shegun Odribo. But I said, let him come in. So I went in, sat down with the man. First 5 minutes, I was blank. So I said, I just said I should come and greet you. So, hey, you came to greet me. Then the Holy Spirit said, ask him, can I have permission to be speaking to the prisoners? So I asked him, I said, sir, I think I have something to say to the prisoners. And if you can give me permission, I won't mind. So, why not? If not, took paper, wrote on this paper, gave it to me. I'm talking about Makurdi maximum prison. It's superior to Elisha prison. Maximum prison. It's giving maximum security. I was given a note. That's how I went in. But guess what? God was saving people like pure water. Criminals. People that were sentenced to death. I will minister Jesus to them. They will accept. By divine orchestration, one government official will come and grant them pardon. One brother I won't forget killed his brother, macheted him to death because of chieftaincy title. He was sentenced to death. He pleaded with the warders that, please, I learned that there's one brother, because if I get to inside the cell now, they may be 24. By the time I preach to them and they accept Jesus Christ and I'm gone, by the time I'm coming back next week, 13 might have gone. There was one particular cell, about 20 something of them, they were reduced to 2. It's really sad. So he pleaded that let him come to my place. So I went there. Before I started, he said, please, I'm ready to accept Jesus. I just want to accept him. So okay, relax. Say, I will confess. So he confessed himself. I said, well, there is a blood that wipes off all offenses as long as you know you are. And he agreed. Prayed with him, left. They came, granted him state pardon. He looked for me in town. Got to my place. In fact, he lived with me. Anytime I tell you the story of a brother that accused me because of stove, it is that man that took that stove. He lived with me because he felt that. But that was the work God wanted me to do. After that time, I've not been able, prison is here, I've not been able to do preaching to them like them. You know the interesting part of it? This girl was following me. Will follow me there. And they will allow her. She will wait for me and then I will do my preaching. So she's been following the madness long time ago. Hello. This God is too good. You are designed for good works. If only you will understand that you are not designed to exist for yourself. You are predestined to conform to the image of his dear son. If you don't mind, I'd like you to bow your head this morning and talk to God. I don't want to live an empty life. I don't want to live for myself. I want to fulfill the destiny that you have in store for me. I'm sure somebody's talking to God here this morning. Jesus, I want to conform to you in totality. Can I ask that you rise up to your feet?